All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Head in the Clouds at our new time, 2 o'clock Eastern time here in the U.S. We're going to be here every Tuesday moving forward at 2 o'clock, and we are excited about this. So my name is Chris Johnson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Go Cloud Careers, joined as always by Mike Gibbs, our founder and CEO, Alonzo Coleman, our Chief Marketing Officer, and Tyrone in the background helping us keep everything going. So today we're going to be talking about tech interview preparation and why everyone needs job interview training. So we see it all the time. It never fails. People invest so much time, effort, energy, resources, money, anything you can think of into getting the skills that they need for their career. But they spend absolutely nothing in the way of time, money, effort, or energy in preparing for the interview. And that is a massive mistake, not just in the short term, but in the long term as well. Not only does the interview determine if you actually get the job, but it also determines how much you get paid. And if we're looking down the road in the future, where you start now with what you make determines what you're going to be making next year or 5 years from now or 10 years from now. We're going to be talking about tech interview preparation. We're going to be talking about interview training. We're going to be talking about everything from cloud computing interviews to cloud architect interview questions and solutions architect interview preparation. Job interview training is the topic for today, and why the interview is important and why you have to do this if you want to be the most successful that you can be. So anyway, I want to hear from Mike and Alonzo, but before we do, since we're talking about interviews, Tyrone, can you please share the link to our free Winning the Interview guide that Mike, Alonzo, and I have prepared for everybody? It's a completely free resource for you on how to win the interview. He will be sharing that in the chat box. It's also in the link in the description if you're watching later and watching the recording. I know sometimes the chat box replay doesn't always pop up like it's supposed to. So you can find that interview guide in the description and in the chat box. But let's hear from Mike and Alonzo.
Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about interview training, which is one of my favorite things in the entire world. I've never been on an interview where I didn't get an offer. And those that I've coached in interviews get offers that are $50,000 more, $100,000 more per year, or even $150,000 more. In fact, I'm going to tell you right now, not preparing for the interview and giving it good attention will cost you $2 to $10 million in your career for the average technology professional in a good job. I'm going to say it again. Focusing on just tech skills and not the interview will likely cost you $2 to $10 million over the life of your career. Well, I want you to think about what your retirement's like with an extra $3 million. A lot of people don't even have any money saved for retirement, but the interview training can easily add $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 more. And throughout this show, we'll give you examples of jobs with pay ranges. In most tech jobs, the pay range is $50,000 to $100,000 for introductory level jobs. At bigger jobs, it's $200,000 to $300,000 per year. So first, you can't get them if you're not smooth on the interview. You're just not going to. And secondly, you're not going to get these higher paying jobs. And third, you're not going to end up on the higher paying part of the range. And guess what? When you work at a company and you want to get a promotion, guess what you're going to have to do? Interview. So I worked at Cisco. I was in their global team. It was about as prestigious of an organization as you wanted to be. And then I had the opportunity to move up 3 levels to join the business solutions group, their business solutions group. And that was a job that was like nothing else in the entire company. I had 16 interviews after I already worked at the company just to move up. Now, I did move up 3 levels in one jump, but 16 interviews. And these were not simple interviews. When everybody you're interviewing with is a VP or a senior VP at a company like Cisco, these are tough interviews. They're not courtesy interviews. They're not fluff. You're dealing with experts that can get to the point. Can you do the job? Do I want you on my team? And what can you do for me? So this is a really, really important topic. I'm going to start it out with a visual, and then I want to go to Alonzo real quick, and then we're going to get into the conversation. Chris, can you bring up a visual of these two houses? Because I want to show it to everybody. This is how important it is. And I think after this visual, you guys are going to get why this is so important. This is a house in North Carolina. For the purposes of our argument today, let's assume the inside of these houses are identical. House on the left needs to be painted, needs some landscaping. It looks kind of gross, right? You're not going to live in this. You don't want to buy this. It's like everybody's worst nightmare to live in this. Look at the house on the right. It's clean, it's shiny, it's nice. It's a historic site. Now, one house may sell for $30,000 and one may sell for $300,000. Same house. Now, in my youth, I was a real estate investor, and you know what I looked for? The ugly ones that had great structures. Why? Because when a family would go to look at it, they'd say, I don't want to buy this. And after sit on the market for 6 months, the people would reduce their price, and I could give an offer, and the person would say, yeah, I guess I'm going to take it. I'd paint it, I'd carpet it, put some new tiles, and I could sell it for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% more, or keep it and rent it out. Because I saw the potential. How many hiring managers hire on potential? I'll give you a hint. None. They hire on what you can do today. They're not going to train you to do the job. They're going to expect you to be able to do the job. But it's not just the ability to do the job that we care about. I'm going to tell you that that's probably 30 to 50% of the decision. The rest of the decision is the other stuff which we're going to talk about today. When we hire somebody, we want the full package. Otherwise, if someone's just got the tech skills and they don't have the rest of the skills, to we hiring managers, they look like this ugly house that nobody would want to live in. And when you polish it up, you got this nice house on the right side. People are willing to live in it. This nice, I guess, cream-colored house. They're willing to pay a lot more for it. And that's what I want for you. I want all of you to have a job that you love. And guess what? The best jobs go to the people that can interview the best. The interview training is the shiny house. The non-interview training is the ugly house. I want you to be shined up and polished. I want you to be like me, where you go interview for one job and they give you a better job because they think you're too good for the one you applied for, and you get the better job anywhere. It's happened to me on 2 of my 5 jobs. It's happened to my students too that have received interview training, and it can happen to you too. So prepare for the interview, polish up your shoes, so to speak, and they look better as opposed to shoes with dirt on them. This is really what we want to talk about. This is interview training. This is why interview training matters, and I want the best for all of you. What is the interview? It's a competition. Train like you're preparing for a competition. What does that mean? Do you think there's more stress on a competition than there is in practice? Yeah. Do you think you now got to impress someone versus impress yourself? Yes. And I want you to learn how to win the competition. You win the competition, you get any job you want. You win the competition, you get the salary that you want. I'll give you a couple salaries, and then I want to show you something, then I want to get into the content. Here we've got a senior director at Cisco. The average salary is $527, but here's what I want you to see. Look at the range, 417 to 698. Got a principal architect at Google. What's the average is 508. The range is 394 to 677. Now, sales skills and business acumen are a big player here, but interview quality is a determination. You got a senior director at IBM, no big, same kind of thing. Pay range is 314 to 521, but the average is 399. Are you sensing something different, that there's a tremendous difference in the salary? Because that's what I want you to see. How about a principal architect at Microsoft? Average, 379. Pay range, 300 to 495. How about a principal architect at Amazon? Average, 372. Pay range, 291 to 491. So these are just a couple of examples. As you can see, if you can crush that interview and you've got some better sales skills, which will help you in your interview and help you learn more, and you earn $200,000 more per year, over the course of 30 years, that's $600,000, assuming you don't get better jobs. This is why interview training. So, Chris, if you can give me a quick short video of my favorite athlete, Simone Biles. This girl is amazing. And I want to show you why you have to prepare for the competition. Then we'll get into the concept.
Are we showing the competition or the preparation?
Let's show the preparation, and then after that, let's show the competition.
All right.
Let's have fun with this.
Give me a second.
Then you'll all understand why. Why I love interview training, why I've been training people forever in interviews. I've trained a lot of people in interviews.
All right, so this one's a short, so it's a little hard for me to get the get it timed just right. So we're just gonna go with it. So the title of this short is this is what happens during Simone Biles practices.
We have to be very quiet because this is a very unauthorized video. Us two tend to get in trouble a lot.
This is practice.
That was not a part of the plan.
Okay, and Chris, we can move on to the next one. So what I wanted everybody to get here is this is practice. You see how happy these kids look? They're having fun. You can see they look like they're good friends. They're all smiles. They're all relaxed. Practice. You're studying for your craft. Your practice. Now, Chris, I want you to show the competition.
All right.
Now, here's what I wanted you to see. Did you see that crowd? Did you see those like 30,000 people there screaming? Do you think that's not a distraction? It's a distraction. Do you think that doesn't add to her stress? It sure adds to her stress. Do you think what would happen if she fell? And she knows this in her mind. If I fall in front of the 50,000 people there and the 500 million people that are watching me on TV, are her sponsors going to sponsor her? Is she going to lose sponsors? Is her sponsorship rate going to go down? Now think about that. And that's why when you have athletes, they don't just train in the gym. They have little mini conferences before they get to the Olympics. The interview is your Olympics. This is your chance to get hired or not get hired, to get a $100,000 salary versus a $200,000 salary, to be escorted out of the room with my favorite expression, an excuse not to hire people. Come back when you have more experience. That means you did a bad job. Doesn't mean you don't have experience, because if you didn't have experience, we wouldn't interview in the first place. We interview someone. So now you know the difference and why it matters. So we talked about...
there was something in the chat box that I want to go to. But before I do, I want to see, Alonzo, do you have anything to add in here? I know you've... You're our branding and marketing guy, and I'm pretty sure some branding goes into this interview preparation.
Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts about the interview and how important the preparation and training is?
Okay, yeah, let's get into that. So initially, you see how when they were practicing, overall presentation, how they were looking, how they were communicating on screen and everything else versus when it was go time. And the way they looked, their mentality, they were focused, they were focused on what they were doing and presented themselves well. So they provided that. And as I swing back and forth beforehand, she was practicing, she made mistakes, she realized what she should do, what she shouldn't do, and she continued to perfect it. And then when it was actually time for those performances, she presented herself well. Everything was in place. Remember, before she even started, she sat there, collected her thoughts, went down that runway, boom, and she performed. And everything that she learned and mistake-wise, she perfected, and she executed and dropped it right then and there without any movements, mistakes, or hesitations. It was such, and I feel like Stephen A on this this type of like talking about it. But you think about what she did to get there and how the overall execution ended up. That's what they'll always see. Now, think about how you perform, or rather your practice. What difference does it make that you've practiced, the tech, you know how to design, present, sell, you know how to knock it out the park, and yet you don't know how to demonstrate that to the right people at the right time, it doesn't matter. That's where your brand comes in. So you practice behind closed doors. Our students, get with your people, get with the people that you have related to, the people that you know, the people that you're comfortable with and uncomfortable with, so that you can be prepared across the board. And then when it's your turn, just like Jermaine, he's here. He went through the classes. He honed his skills and everything else. Anyone else who's in the process, whether we know it or not, because sometimes people don't tell us until we get all the wonderful information about being cloud hired. But at the end of the day, practice, practice, practice. And then you're going to have that culmination of training, of focus, of interview skills, practice, working with your team. And then next thing you know, you're going to get a call if you don't get that information on the spot. We'd like to have you on the team, and everyone can get there.
Yeah, and I know Mike's got a whole talking point list here, but I want, like I said, there was something in the chat box that I wanted to get to before we continue with our list here. So where did it go? Okay, here we go. Mo, my hiring manager literally told me I would have offered you 30,000 more if you asked for it. We got you for cheap.
Wow.
That's part of interview training.
Absolutely. Knowing what you're worth and knowing how to command more. Now, add the right polish and the right negotiation skills. Now it's not 30,000. It's 100,000.
Yep.
And that's why we're talking about it. So we talked about the interview being determined if you get hired or not. What if I told you that you may have 5,000 people that apply for the job, and the interview starts with your resume? We'll get into that more later and how that affects your interview. Then, maybe it gets watered down to 50 people that we interview, and then we hire one.
I don't know anybody that's interviewing 50 people, Mike. I don't have the time to interview 50 people.
Well, you aren't in tech. And here's the reason it turns into 50. The first one you interview doesn't know how to answer you. The second one doesn't know how to answer. The third one you interview. By the time you're done with it, you've been interviewing people for 6 weeks straight, and you still can't find someone. I actually hired this guy. The first guy that I actually hired, his name was Shanor. I interviewed a person that lied to me. I interviewed an incompetent person. I interviewed a liar. I interviewed a liar. I interviewed a liar, another incompetent person, another liar. This guy comes in. He's the nicest guy I ever met in my entire life. And he says, Mike, I don't know how to do this, but I will do anything to learn. I'll be the best guy on your team. You give me the chance and I'll take it. I went to my manager and convinced the vendor that I had to hire this guy, Shanor. He's now the CEO of a company. He now does low-cost computers in the developing world. I'm so proud of this guy. But the point is his interview was so good, I was willing to look past the fact that he knew absolutely zero. And that's how hard it is to hire someone. It is near impossible in tech to hire someone. Firing them, that's unfortunately easy, and far too easy for too many people. One of my least favorite things in the entire world. I'd rather be selective, get the right people, and keep them forever. That's kind of the way I like to do things. But hard versus not hard, your salary. But here's the secret. How does the manager know if you can do the job or not? I'm going to tell you right now. For architects, we don't text the tech. So nobody's going to give you a coding test because that's not part of our skill set. Nobody's going to go ask you to build something. How do they know if you know? It's how well you interview. I'm going to say it again. The interview is how we determine if you can do the job. So you can have all the greatest skills in the world and not do the job. In fact, I worked with someone approximately 20 years ago. This person was probably the smartest person I ever met in my entire life. Their IQ was 172, which puts them about 5 standard deviations past a normal genius. This person was so smart, and she went on about 75 interviews, and no one would work with her. No one would hire her. She was better and smarter than anybody that interviewed this girl. Now, I spent some time with her. I broke down the interview. I taught her how to sell herself. I taught her how to position herself. I taught her how to create rapport. I taught her how to show all the things that she was. She goes on her next interview and she was hired. That was the difference between those. Nobody could tell how lucky they would have been to hire this woman. No one would have known, because she was so smart. When she spoke, what people heard was blah, 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 blah. Not why I'm the one you need. 20 some years later, this person has an incredible career, but she needed to get that start, and she needed somebody to translate her genius into stuff the rest of us mere mortals can understand.
Hey, Mike, I think I know what she sounded like. I think I actually got a recording of her.
Okay, I'd love to hear this, because
You said blah 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 blah. I think many of us of a certain age know what that is.
Actually, yeah. So you know what? If you have the ability to find it, because this is what most of us hiring managers hear when we interview people. And actually, you know, here's the first thing that happens in an interview. In 90% of interviews, we ask someone to tell us about themselves. Now, you'd think this would be easy because you'd practice it and it would come out smooth. What we hear is that wah, 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 wah. Which means the second we hear this in the first 10 seconds of the interview, it's already over. It died before it actually began. And I used to keep cookie jars. I had a cookie jar in my office. And why did I keep a cookie jar? I don't eat butter. I don't eat sugar. I don't drink soda. I'm a health nut. And anybody that knows me knows exactly how regimented and disciplined I am. Occasionally, I cheat and have 2 pieces of whole grain bread. But that's about as bad as my diet ever gets.
Shame on you, Mike.
And when I was on vacation, I had these Ezekiel rolls.
I can't believe that.
I had it 3 times on my vacation. I was a total rebel. But
Can't believe it.
I digressed. I got lost when I was my train of thought. Over there.
You got cookies. You had cookies.
Oh, so I have a cookie jar and I kept it in my office, and here's the reason why. It's really offensive to tell somebody on an interview, I can't hire you no matter what you do. So 95% of people lie on the interview, and we're going to address that today. And they lie on the interview, and one of the things we care about as hiring managers, can we trust the person? In fact, I always ask a question that I know the candidate won't know the answer to see how they respond. The second they lie, you know, what I'd like to have is one of those buttons with a trapdoor where the floor end opens and they just get sent to their house.
Or you could have my button.
I guess I could use that button, but that would be kind of offensive to a lot of other people.
Oh,
So
and the trap door to a pit wouldn't? Okay.
Yeah, that'd be kind of offensive. But, you know, once somebody lies to me, you know, I get frustrated. They're wasting my time. I like to just have a trapdoor that opens up, sends them to a nice sandy beach, and give them a ticket for cab fare home. But, you know.
And a cookie.
And a cookie. So what I did is I kept the cookie jar. And the second somebody lied to me on an interview, I fed them cookies. I bought a lot of cookies in my career. I was constantly going to the bakery. There was a bakery that was known to have good cookies. And I figured somebody came here, they took the time out of their day, at least I can feed them the best cookies I possibly can in the entire world. So second they lied to me, cookies. And I kept feeding them cookies. And I didn't have to listen to another word they said, hearing blah, 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 once they lied to me. Now, if the person was honest with me, I'm willing to look past a lot of lack of knowledge. I am. And I'm even willing to train somebody with 30 or 40% of the skills if they're the right person. But I don't like being lied to. I just don't. So let's talk about what goes into the hiring manager's decision to hire. I promise you, it's not what you think it is. And I'm going to give you an example from my youth. What you want isn't necessarily what someone else wants. I was about 8 years old, and I had just gotten my birthday money, and I was a saver, not a spender, so I collected it. I had my Hanukkah money, and my grandmother came over to my house. My grandmother, she just passed, God rest her soul. She was wonderful. She came to my house. I took her to my bedroom, and I cracked open my piggy bank. And I said, I need you to take me to, it was either Kitty City or Toys R Us. I can't remember. She reminded me of it all the time. And she said, sure, what do you want to buy? I said, I'm buying you a sandbox. And she says, why do you want to buy me a sandbox? I said, the sandbox is the greatest thing ever. You go in the sandbox, you can create houses, you can create castles. It's so much fun. I love my sandbox so much, I'm going to buy you a sandbox. Now, the reality was, 40 years later, my grandmother was still telling me how I broke open my piggy bank to try and get her what I thought was the best present in the world. But my 40 or 50-year-old grandmother was not excited by the sandbox. She was excited by my heart. And what do hiring managers really want? Well, they want a lot of things. But here's what they really want. It goes without saying that you have to be able to do the job. But I've got 10 people that can do the job. Which one do I hire? And I'd like you to think about it this way. The first thing that comes into factor is, can I trust the person? Now, I'm going to tell you, after interviewing thousands and thousands of people, I think it's been 6,000 interviews I've done, I'd say 5,950 people lied to me. How many of those people do you think I can hire? 0. I can't hire somebody I can't trust. If you went on a date with someone and they lied to you, would you marry them? Probably not. You probably wouldn't even go on a second date if you knew they were lying to you. So you can't marry them, and hiring someone is like marrying them. So the first thing they care is, can you do that? The next thing they care about is your attitude. I'm going to make it very clear. I got person number 1 that walks in the room that's mediocre at their job. But they have such a degree of emotional intelligence and likability that they walk in the room and my other players all perform 10% better. I got 10 people on my team. The mediocre person makes each person 10% more productive. I got an extra staff member just from hiring that person in terms of effectiveness. That person's going to get hired now, and I'm going to train them to be better at their job, and I'm going to be so excited to hire that person. How about their communication skills? You ever spend time with people that can't communicate? You know what happens? They get in fights every single day of the week and constant arguments. You know what also happens? They make mistakes. You get the wrong information. You're an architect. You put in the wrong information. The design doesn't come out. The customer is frustrated. They kick you out. You lose the business forever. You got a software engineer. They get the wrong information. They write the code for the wrong problem. Doesn't work. My network people don't talk to my data center people. Don't talk to my security people. We've got outages. So communication skills are essential for us. Now, next, and this is really applicable right now in 2023. Employee productivity in the US is about the worst it's been in 75 years. So how do we get a better standard of living? People do more. How do people do more? The technology enables us. But in the US right now, we've got the worst employee productivity in 75 years. What does that mean? People just aren't doing their jobs. I don't know why. There's lots of reasons. I'm not here to say good, bad, or indifferent. I don't make judgments. I'm just speaking strictly facts. There's lots of reasons. So you think I want people that are going to be more productive, be willing to work harder, be willing to do more. So the next thing we care about is the energy, the enthusiasm, and the passion. The next thing employers care about is they want to care if you're competitive or not. When I showed you Simone Biles doing that vault, I don't know how many of you saw the magic in that, but I mean, she's one of a few in the entire world that can deliver it the way she can, maybe the only one. Now, that didn't come by accident. It came from constant training, constant attention to detail, and constant execution again and again and again and again and again. She's unstoppable. Do you think she's taking a nap midday? Well, maybe she needs to recover from her 6 hours of exercise.
Well, hey now, was that like a shot at me here? What's going on?
It wasn't a shot at you. So
that's funny.
Kevin O'Leary said it best. He says, I don't hire people that come in at 9 and leave at 5. I hope and pray they work for my competition. What do you mean by that? What he meant by that is not when you do your work. I don't care if somebody takes a nap during the hour of the day, as long as they get the work done later or before. Who cares? But they care about people's ability to execute. And there's a difference between I don't care and I'm willing to get the job done. So they look for that energy, enthusiasm, and competitiveness. The best companies hire athletes. Pepsi did it. They nearly crushed Coca-Cola 30 years ago about it. In fact, Pepsi hired a bunch of athletes. And they came up with an incredible marketing campaign. It was so effective at people buying it that Coca-Cola's sales went from here to like this overnight. Coca-Cola got so upset that instead of thinking to hire athletes, they changed their formula and lost even more business. But anyway, I digress. But the point is employers want competitiveness. Then they want your willingness to go above and beyond. And they want to know that you're a team player. Nothing great is accomplished by one person, ever. It's a team. So they care if you can do this. So if all you can talk about is yourself and your tech, you just should have employers that 9 out of the 10 things they're looking at, you don't do. And you think you're going to be hired? No. And if you do get hired and the range is 100 to 200, you're going to be at the 100. I don't want that for any of you. So we're looking for your other stuff. Now let's talk about a newbie. I just got done training. Guess what? You can get hired. You can. I've got people to prove it all the time. Jermaine's here. Jermaine's last job was selling landscaping gear. He's a world-class enterprise architect. I would trust Jermaine anywhere because he's competent and he's capable and he's motivated. But Jermaine's emotionally intelligent. He's got great leadership skills, great communication skills, great levels of emotional intelligence. He's a hard worker, a team player, and willing to go above and beyond. And I picked him for a reason. He didn't have from tech. He took our cloud architect training, skipped the whole cloud architect, and got an even better job as an enterprise architect. I'd want him on my team. And why is that? Because when we interview someone, we're looking at all the attributes. Your skill is like a percentage of it, but then at least 50%, sometimes more, is all those other attributes I talked about. So when it's your first job, if you don't have those other attributes, you can't compete effectively. That's why all those people that have cloud boot camps out there, people take them and don't get hired and they all fail. A lot of them come to us, we retrain them and we get them hired within 6 months. Well, first, they're being taught the wrong skills. And secondly, nobody's teaching them how to have the stuff that wins the interview because they don't know it themselves. You got to be a manager or a hiring manager or a manager's manager or a manager's manager's manager and speak to executives all day long to know what executives care about. Otherwise, here's what you hear. Po si sa ali, isa daxi, ogoan daxi, ogoan nasti Florida. Pumana amis. Did any of you connect with that unless you were Greek? No. But when people go and babble about tech to the hiring manager that may or may not even know the tech, that's what the hiring manager hears. And if you're speaking to someone in a language they don't understand, they're just not going to hire you. So it's the blended skill set that you have. I'll use an architect example. We could use any career you want, but people know me for cloud architecture careers, enterprise architecture careers. Somebody does 10,000 cloud projects. Guess what? They're great at configuring the cloud. You know what they don't do in their job? Configure the cloud. But that's neither here nor there. So when we ask someone how to design this, and they say, I can write this Python script, and we say, thanks, but that's somebody else's job. We give them a presentation as part of the interview, and if they haven't trained their presentation skills, they fail the interview. We then ask them to explain technology, and most people have never known how to explain technology right in the first place. What we hear is wah, 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 and we don't even think they're competent. They could be the most competent person in the world, but we're never going to know. Why are we not going to know? Because here was what we hear. Wah, 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 like we used to hear in Charlie Brown and Peanuts and all those other great things that probably don't exist anymore. So how about the other things? How about sales skills? Critical skill for the thing. The person's talking about their tech. They're not talking about their sales. The hiring manager gets paid based on how much their team sells. The person's talking about their tech skills. They're not talking about selling anything. The hiring manager says, I hire this person, they can't sell, I get fired. I hire the next person with great sales skills, and I get an extra $100,000 bonus at the end of the year. Who are they going to hire? So you got to be speaking to them in the language they want, in what they care about. And that's you're going there. So I think we should talk about the phases of the interview and what people do in each phase. Phase 1 of the interview, where does it start? Your resume and your LinkedIn profile. Right then and there. Wait, what? The interview starts with your resume? Yes. So
Yeah,
You're
let's
gonna
talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Like, so many people
Agreed.
think, and this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning about how, you know, so many people put all this time, effort, and money into preparing for the career that they don't actually do anything else. They just start applying and applying and applying and applying and applying after they've put their resume together, and they've just put their resume together, and they're the only person that's ever seen it. They've never even shared it with anybody else. They've never gotten anyone else's feedback on it. Whether that be your mom or your brother or your colleague or
Someone.
hopefully a hiring manager or a recruiter. But yeah, I mean, Mike is absolutely right here. The the interview starts way before the interview. Your interview, the whole process starts with the resume. And so many people don't realize that. How do you get the interview? Your advertisement, which is your resume. Alonso, you're the ad guy. You're the marketing guy here.
Yeah.
If you don't have a resume, if you don't have a proper resume.
I mean, it's more like, okay, how can you sell a product if you don't have any ads, if you don't have any print ads? You can't verbalize yourself, any of that, business cards. Those are advertisements. And at the end of the day, you could have the best product in the world. Just like Mike had mentioned, you can articulate, or rather you're good at what you know how to do. But if you can't communicate your value, then you might as well be nothing with no competency or capability. You might as well be a truck driver looking for a cloud architect job, which had no experience at all, and you can't speak to any of the tech. So talk about what you know. This is a perfect example and stuff. It's like, okay, well, how are you advertising yourself? What type of expert or any type of competency? How are you attracting your ability to be a cloud architect with the hiring manager? Because believe me, they've seen it all, they've heard it all. So what is differentiating yourself from being that particular applicant that they say, boom, that's the one that I want to go for?
And going back to these two houses, let's assume they're identical on the inside. The one on the right is the one with the interview training, the resume training, and it looks good. The one on the left is ugly. And either it doesn't get an interview, or when the person wants to be an architect, they get an admin interview instead of an architect job. Not that there's anything wrong with being an admin, but your resume will determine.
And if somehow they get all the way to the job offer, guess who's not getting asking price?
Yes, it's exactly that. So, let's pull back, and I really want you to think about it. The advertising that you do as a company, as an individual, determines the kind of customers that you actually get. BMW advertises performance driving, and the people that buy and lease BMWs are looking for a performance car. They're not looking for a comfort car. They're looking for a performance car. Volvo used to advertise for safety. You know who used to buy Volvos? Doctors, nurses, teachers, and every safety-obsessed person in the world. I had a Volvo for a long time. Go figure. I actually had a dream where I was in a car accident. In my dream, I told my wife I'm buying a Volvo. I had that Volvo, was in a massive car accident, and had the car towed, gave a presentation, closed the deal, and made it on stage at Cisco because of it. Point is, the advertising is there. So don't listen to any of the people that have never had a tech job in the world that are telling you to use ChatGPT to tune your resume to a job description. You do that, I promise you it's going to be tuned to all the wrong stuff, and you won't get any decent job ever. HR may send you to the manager, but the manager is going to ask you about stuff you're totally incompetent about, and you'll lose that job. So we have to have what's called truth in advertising. What's on your resume is the questions that you're going to be asked about. Phase 1, plant the seeds. If you want a palm tree, don't plant the seeds for a pine tree, because a pine tree is going to grow. I'll give you a perfect example. I had a student, Arun. He wouldn't mind me saying this. Arun is, on the scale of 1 to 10 in terms of intelligence, he's a 10. And a scale of 1 to 10 from capabilities, he's also a 10. And the tell work hard, he's also a 10. And he took my program. He was working at Home Depot. I really like this guy. I think a lot of him. And he took all these silly DevOps and SysOps and developer courses, popped it on his resume. You know what happened every time he went on an architect interview? People asked him about DevOps and SysOps and code development, which was not his skills. You know how many job offers he got on the first 20 interviews or whatever he went on? 0. And then he said to me, Mike.
And let's reiterate, why did he get asked those things?
They were on his resume.
They were on his resume.
Exactly.
I remember seeing this guy's resume. I mean, I love Arun. Arun hijacked a class.
He's that great.
Me and Alonzo one time. Him and Tremaine hijacked our class, but I love him. His resume. Oh, bless his heart. As we say in the South, bless his heart.
Yeah. This is a guy that anybody would be lucky to have in their company. That's how highly I think of him. Me too. I would happily hire him in my company if I had the space. He's great. So he said, what's going on? And I said, Arun, today's a Friday. Fridays are when we do soft skills and interview training and leadership training. Can I have fun with your resume? And he's like, whatever you need, I want to get hired. I removed all the certifications in other people's careers. I removed every aspect of coding and all this other stuff that architects don't do. I
rewrote. How did he feel about that at first, Mike?
Oh, he was like this in class. Like, what are you doing, Mike? What are you doing?
Why are you taking my things off?
I said, this is somebody else's job. And I said, I don't hire an airplane pilot for their dog walking skills. And I don't hire an architect to code because we don't code in our jobs. I hire them to design and promote digital transformation and improve business performance with technology.
But the reason I asked that is because he was very proud of the things that he
Yes, he was proud of it.
And rightfully so. He
worked hard to get them.
But there's a piece to this whole process. A little bit of humility.
Yes. So Arun says
to do what the Jedi Master says.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Arun listened to me, and I did it in front of the entire class. I said, Arun, these are great skills, but they're not the right skills for the job. I got rid of all that stuff, and I translated it to what architects actually do. Improve digital transformation, design this, led this, responded to this, and I put it all in there. Derek can remember he was in there. I see he popped it in the chat box. I did this, and I said, Arun, trust me. Later that month, he had 3 job offers. Now, prior to that, he used to say, Mike, they asked me all this tech stuff on my interview. After this, he said, Mike, you're right. We talked about leadership. We talked about sales. We talked about design. He said the interview was so great. I had all of these options after the fact. The interview starts with your resume and LinkedIn profile. What people see on your resume is what they're going to ask you about. So if somebody says use ChatGPT to highlight your resume based on a job description, and you put down all the stuff that's not your expertise to highlight a job description, you're going to get an interview. The interview is going to be an absolute disaster. And then the next thing that's going to be there is you got nothing. I don't want that to happen to you. So first, you start by building the right brand and building the right information. The next thing, what's that? Go ahead, Alonzo.
I'm just saying, well said, Mike. You're laying out the gems here today.
Next phase of the interview, I like to call reconnaissance. Like, I come from a background, most of the people I know are military. So you could call it research. You can call it reconnaissance. I don't really care. I like to call it recon. So when you're doing your reconnaissance, what are you really learning? You're learning about the company that you're going to interview with. What's the company known for? What do they do well? What do they not do well? What are they the leader in? Where are their pain points? Where are their troubles? What things do they like in their corporate culture? What things do they not like in their corporate culture? AWS and IBM's corporate cultures are very, very different. Cisco's and IBM's culture are pretty similar. Doesn't make one wrong or one right, but if you're going to present yourself to Amazon, you better present yourself differently than the way you would put to Cisco. Cisco's looking for more of one thing, Amazon's looking for more another. You got to do this. And if you're not prepared, it's like taking 2 people that you want to date and saying the same thing about yourself.
So you're telling me if I don't do reconnaissance and don't know who I'm actually interviewing for, there's a possibility that I might have a little bit of during the interview.
Absolutely. And let's talk about something else. I love animals. I'm preferential to cats. Anybody that knows me knows my cat Cindy is like my daughter to me. I love that cat so much. I like dogs. I like birds. I like lizards. I like turtles. I like frogs. I like all animals. But if you gave me a dog and you gave me a cat, I'm going to grab that cat as fast as possible. Not because it's better than a dog. It's not. It's because I'm a cat person. If you got somebody that's a cat person, don't talk to them about your German Shepherd, no matter how nice it is. Just speak in another language. So the point of the recon is as follows. You got to know what the company's challenges are so you know how you can help them with those challenges. You got to know what the company's culture is so you can see if it's the right fit for you. And in addition to seeing if it's the right fit for you, you've got to position yourself.
All right. So I saw a question before Mike keeps going here. I see a question from Hassan. He says, please review my CV, Mike. Just watch the 5-minute podcast and learn a lot. Great. That's exactly why we do these. We want to help everybody. That's why we have our Head in the Clouds show. We have a little fun, but we also want to be helpful. But anyway, I say all that to say, I'm going to put a little poll up here to see if there's any interest in a resume workshop. So
That would
if you're
be
interested
great.
in a resume workshop, no guarantees. I don't know. Like, I haven't even looked at our schedule. We just came out of Labor Day. I haven't slept in like 24 hours. That's a whole other story. But I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to put it out here to see if there's any interest in it. So if you're interested, are you interested in a resume workshop? Yes or no? Start poll. Very simple. Check that poll out in the chat box. So, Mike, back to you. We were just talking about reconnaissance.
Okay, so you need
that.
to know the company so you know how you can position yourself to the company. Companies hire people because they have problems. They hire you to solve them. If you don't know what the company's problems are and how you can solve them, why should they hire you? They shouldn't. That's the answer, is they shouldn't. They should hire someone that can solve their problems. Now, next is the hiring manager. What are the hiring manager's motivations? You got to know. Because if you don't know, how are you going to sell yourself to somebody? Chris, would you like a dinosaur in your house? Probably, I don't know.
It depends. Is it a kittysaurus?
No, I mean a giant dinosaur, like a 10,000-pound dinosaur.
No.
Okay.
No. I already have a kittysaurus. So.
Chris has a giant cat, a beautiful Maine Coon Sonny. But the point is if I'm trying to sell him a dinosaur and he doesn't want a dinosaur in his house, it doesn't matter what he's trying to do. So the hiring manager has goals, right? If it's an architect position, the hiring manager wants you to sell a lot, right? Because if you don't, they get fired. If you sell a lot more, they get bigger bonuses. The person may be trying to get promoted, right? So what do they have to do to get promoted? Their team has to do like extra stuff. So how can you show that you can help them? Maybe the hiring manager loves cats. I'm going to talk about why I care about that in a minute. But the point is, you got to show the hiring manager how you're going to help impact them. If you don't research the hiring manager, how do you know what they like or dislike? How do you know, and how do you know any of it? So this is where we get into those open source investigations where you got to cyber stalk people on social media, see what they're posting on LinkedIn, see what they're posting on Facebook. You're going to get a better idea. And why? What's the point of all this reconnaissance first? Your first job on the interview is to establish rapport. Rapport are common ground between you and the hiring manager. If you have a conversation without establishing rapport, they're not going to necessarily like you.
It's like all those LinkedIn messages that you guys probably get in your LinkedIn inbox every day.
Yeah, it's like that.
No rapport.
It's like
I
no
can solve
rapport.
your problem.
You hit the ground running, saying you can offer me something I never explicitly asked for, nor do you know anything about, and saying you're the solution to all my problems. Delete.
You know, so I'm going to make a joke out of it because, you know, Chris and I had this conversation. One day I received 100 stupid spam request emails in that day. And I said, Chris, can I just write stop spamming me to all of these?
No, you didn't ask. You just started responding. And I'm like, Mike, you can't do that.
Yeah. And the point is if somebody sends me an unsolicited something about a problem that I don't even have, telling me they're going to help me solve it. Somebody sent me something, and it was the other day. You need to leverage technology or you'll be out of business. And I said, are you interested in me training you how to deploy technology, how to design technology, or how to improve business performance? Because I promise you, I've done a lot more billion-dollar designs than you have. And the person, oh, sorry, I didn't know. Well, yeah, don't do it before you know, but you got to build rapport. And I'll give you the example. Rapport, when people like you, everything you say sounds sweet. When you were a kid and you got a B+ on your report card, your parents said, nice job in most cases. When you were a kid and you made a drawing of a tiger and it looked like a bunch of sticks with 2 fangs hanging out, your parents said, what a beautiful diagram. Now, if you showed that to a stranger, they'd look at that picture and say, yeah, thank you. But the people that like you, hey, that's a pretty picture. I kind of like this. So you got to establish the rapport. If you don't, they're not going to take you seriously. So you better learn how to establish rapport. Now, the next part is proving competency. How do you prove competency on an interview? Are they going to ask you to go look into someone's identity and access management code for an architect? No. They can't even show you their customer stuff because it's probably locked under an NDA. They're going to know on how you communicate the technology to them. Now, I've done 6,000 interviews. Play the video, Chris. This is what I hear on 5,950 of the interviews.
Hold on. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I hear this on almost every interview. All right. And here's the point, and I know I hear, but I really want to make it clear. I need you to explain it in a manner that I understand. A story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when you start with the middle, and then you get to the end, and you go back to the beginning, I'm lost. And if I'm lost, I can't hire you. And the reality is there's a way to frame technology. What is the tech? How does it work? Why do we use it? And how does it work does not mean which buttons you click. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with how the technology actually works. If you don't know the technology, how are you going to design it? Now, configuring the tech doesn't teach you the underlying infrastructure. You can click one button, start an EC2 instance on an AWS. Click, done, it's launched. But does that tell you the underlying processor architecture, the underlying DRAM architecture? And we need this for all engineering and architecture careers. You need to know this. Does that teach you how the hypervisor manages memory? Does it teach you whether this processor is going to be high enough performance for this application versus this processor? Is it going to teach you what happens when there's an error in the DRAM? No. But when you're explaining the technology, you might need to explain at this level. That's how we pick out a rock star that we pay that extra $50,000 to versus the regular person. They're levels of explanation. The next part of the interview, after we've proved you're competent, and again, of the 6,000 interviews, 5,950 people proved they were incompetent, not competent, that I performed. Here's the next phase. Showing me you've got all the attributes that I care about. I care about your communication skills. Isn't that obvious by the manner you communicate to me? I care about your depth of knowledge. That becomes obvious in the levels of depth of the explanations you give. Here, your energy, enthusiasm, passion. Watch. Hi, I'm a CCIE. Yeah, I'm real good with BGP. I'm a CCIE. I've been working with BGP now for 20 years. I've designed billion-dollar architectures in the internet routing architecture using BGP for these billion-dollar architectures. And I've worked with the most complex architectures in the entire world and taught thousands of people. Sounds kind of different, right? But who's getting the $500,000 job? The second guy. Who's getting the $100,000 job? The first guy. I want you getting that $500,000 job, not the $100,000 one. Now, what's the next phase of all job interviews for high-paid positions? You will be forced to give a presentation. Any good job, sales engineer, solution architect, AI architect, enterprise architect, director, VP, hiring manager, every one of them, you're going to have to give a presentation. If you haven't prepared how to give a presentation, guess what? You can't get the job, any good job. You're out. And if your presentation skills are almost good enough, remember I showed you the pay range for that principal architect at Google, $394 to $677. Can't give a presentation, you get the bottom. Can give a presentation, get the top. Not only will it get you hired, but you'll be able to sell more, which is going to raise your salary. Now, you got to close the deal. Most people that can do everything else fail here. Why? They didn't have sales training. If you can't close the deal and convince them to hire you, guess what else you've got? You got something my grandmother would call bupkas, or nothing. You got nothing. Because it doesn't matter how good you are if you can't cross the finish line. Doesn't matter. Have you ever seen a race where the athlete gets so tired 50 feet before the finish line, even though they were number one, that they just collapse and can't cross the finish line? Don't be that person. I want you to win, and I want you to win good. Now, you've got the right resume. You planted the right seeds. You've established rapport. You've proven that you're capable of doing the job. You've showed them that you've got all the skills they want you to have. You even sold yourself. Now you get an offer. If you don't know how to negotiate, guess what? You're going to get a lot less than you earn. But part of that is knowing when to negotiate and when not, when to push back and when not. And you think you can hardball a negotiation with a hiring manager? One of two things is going to happen if you do. Either they'll cancel the job, or they'll give it to you, but they'll hate you. And if they hate you, do you know what happens at the next layoff cycle? You're gone. So there's a way to negotiate and show you're more valuable and show respect for your opponent. You do that, you're going to build a friendship along the way and earn more. So these are the things that go into a successful interview. Now, I've mentioned several stages. Misexecution on any one of those stages either means you don't get the job or it cost you $100 grand. Now, quite frankly, I spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on interview training when I was younger. And I've spent 25 years researching how to give people better interviews. And I needed a full 25 years. I was coaching people on nurse practitioner and physician interviews and nursing interviews even long before I got out there, because the psychology, the sociology of this was interesting to me. The economics was interesting to me. And I loved sales because I learned real quick. I had a mentor growing up, and I used to ask people, what I would do is I would find every successful person I could find, and I would say, what do I need to do to be successful? And I always learned things. I was told, learn economics, learn finance, learn to present, learn to sell, learn to lead, learn to communicate, and have good business skills so you can make good decisions. I started studying that stuff at 14 years old. Granted, I didn't have a lot of friends when I was 14 years old. They were all playing games and getting drunk and smoking stuff with no labels on it. And I was studying psychology. But, you know, I enjoyed it. It's what I love. And it's why I've been able to help thousands and thousands of people. So please download the free Get How to Win the Interview Guide. Now, at this point, I'll give it to Chris and Alonzo, and let's open it up for questions. I want to help all of you as much as possible.
Yeah, so everybody's been awfully quiet today with their questions, and I know people have to have questions about this. So, I think Alonzo has asked more questions in the chat box than anybody else. So I'm gonna do a quick scroll through here while if Alonzo wants to share anything while I do a quick scroll. Feel free, Alonzo.
Well, definitely. I really want to share with people. There are so many of our clients already in the threads right now. And if you are having hesitations about what we can do and how we can help realize your transition in your journey into becoming actual cloud architects, I see at least 4 or 5 students that can attest to that. If you want to ask them any questions, I'm sure that they would be happy to share their experience with you. But one of the things that I want to impart is that I myself was a student as well. I started off in the proverbial wilderness, if you will. I went to Linux Academy. I went to Cloud Guru. I went to Cloud Academy. I spoke and actually purchased instructor-led course after course after course. And one of the things that I could tell you that was synonymous with all of them is that they taught nothing but the tech. One thing that I can tell you that they didn't teach was they were synonymous with not talking about business acumen, CXO relevancy, emotional intelligence, leadership, building relationships, understanding that it's not the tech that gets you the job, but what you do with that tech, creating solutions, talking about business related solutions, if you will. I'll say that again about how that tech leverages benefits for the organization. Is it making money? Are they going to be able to streamline their efficiencies? Are they going to be able to really nail down a lot of those marketing goals and short and long-term hard and soft values that they have? What is that going to look like for the CEO? So it's not about the tech, because I'm telling you, the CEO could care less about the tech. He doesn't want to spend another $1 million plus or more to spend, for more tech if there's not going to be an end game about how it's going to help the company, how it's going to help their short and long-term goals, or it's going to keep the stakeholders happy, are the are the human capital or the employees are going to understand this tech, and is it going to make their environment and their overall day-to-day operations better? What is that looking like? So these are the things that I learned here, and it helped me to transition into really into becoming an architect, although my job is to become the chief marketing officer or actually doing those roles. But it was those type of competencies that I learned through Mike, through the community and so forth. So I am living proof that it works. I'm able to help help people talk about it, or you can ask questions to me, of course, Mike, the CEO, and of course, our chief operations officer, Chris, which he keeps it popping. He makes it happen. Anything that needs to happen to enhance the overall flow of the classes or anything else, Chris helps do that. So all 3 of us, along with our amazing staff, we can provide those and help those experiences become realized for you. But it always starts with a simple question. So let's go.
All right. So I want to take a second to talk a little bit about the topic at hand. Mike talked about a lot of things here that go into a proper interview. And I would just want to remind everybody that this all goes back to the topic of interview preparation and interview training. So we do interview training. We do it as part of our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. We do it as part of our Elite Program. We do it as part of our Tech Interview Mastery Program, our Tech Interview Fundamentals Program. We even have a program specifically about building your brand, because that's a big part of making sure that you do the interview right. But aside from our training, I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about I cannot reiterate how important a good interview is. Without a good interview, Mike said this earlier, without a great interview, you could lose at least $2 million over the course of your career. Okay, let's look at that. That's a big number, but let's look at that. Okay, let's say let's just use the example that Mo put here in the chat box earlier, saying, where did he say it? Where did he say it? He said, I'm trying to find the exact quote here. He said, my hiring manager literally told me I would have offered you 30,000 more. And anybody that's calling our phone line, we will return calls when we are off the show, because guess who the call line goes to? Us guys.
The three executives.
So we will return calls afterwards. This is our first time at 2:00, so we forgot to block things out. So, but anyway, I would have offered you 30,000 more if you had asked for that. Okay.
Just asked.
Just asked.
Not even a better interview. Just asked.
Just asked. So that's just asking. And I use this because part of interview training, so many people don't know that they can ask.
Or how to ask.
They don't realize that just because you ask doesn't mean they're going to take it away. If you ask, now if you go in there and you play hardball and you demand, that's a completely different story. But if you ask in the right manner, boom, you've gotten $30,000 more. Now, let's say you never changed positions, never had any more advancements, and just stayed right where you were for the next 30 years. That's $900,000.
That's without the interview training. That's just knowing what to ask.
That's without any better interview. That's just as the interview was. And that's without any potential advancement or changes in your career. Now, if you remember what I said at the beginning, the interview sets, or your job offer sets the foundation for where you're going to go in the future. So Mike shared lots of examples of job offerings and job pay ranges, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars on the pay range. And the difference between that, a little bit is experience. But it's not the experience on the paper, it's the everything that comes from that experience. That can be covered in interview training. That presentation, that gravitas, that communication, that how to handle yourself, how to be prepared, how to what's the French? The je ne sais quoi, that comes along with it. So let's say you get a job, you get a $150,000 job. Great. You could have gotten 220. What do you think you're going to be in 3 years if you started at 150 versus where you started at 220?
Yep.
In 3 years, if you started at 150, you'll be at 220. Maybe. In 3 years, if you started at 220, you'll be at 300.
Yeah. And actually, I want to add to what Chris is saying, and I want him to keep going. When you join at a better level, you get access to all the leadership training, strategic offsites, and better things.
Yep.
When you don't start off at that level, you don't get it. So there's basically the haves and the have-nots in these corporations. Yeah. Once you prove yourself to be officially worthy, then they're paying for your MBAs. They're paying for you to go to this leadership thing. And when you're not, it's like, can I go to training? Sure. You can go to this tech class for 2 weeks, which will have no impact on your salary. Oh, I'd like you to pay for my executive MBA at Harvard. Sure, we're happy to do so.
Yep.
So, and go back, Chris. I didn't mean to disturb you.
I'd like you to pay for this 3-day thing that's $6,000.
They'll do it.
By all means, we'll do it. Oh, you don't know what your budget is for training and development? Your budget is $25,000 a year. Oh, thanks. Now I know. Okay, great. So yeah, so Mike, I mean, it's all of this is compounding, and guess what? It's compounding off of your investment in yourself, whether it's time, energy, effort. Maybe all you need to do is go to what's the speaking thing.
Yeah, for junior level people, Toastmasters is great.
That's right, exactly. Maybe that's all you need. Maybe, and you go to Toastmasters and boom, that solves your problem. Maybe that's the one thing that you're missing. But you have to do an initial investment with a coach. Or somebody that has the ability to tell you what you're missing. And maybe that's $200, maybe that's $500, whatever it might be. I know that seems like a lot, but it is worth it in the long run. If you spend $200, $300 for a session with an executive coach or a recruiter or somebody that can determine where your deficiencies are,
Well, it's worth it.
and they end up saying, just go to Toastmasters for a couple of months, do what you're supposed to do, and boom, you're going to get there. Or they say, hey, you know what? You need to go find something that's going to fill this. You got a long way to go. You got to work on your resume. You got to work on your presentation skills. You got to work on your executive presence. You got to work on your answering of questions. You have to work on your comfort level. You have to work on your body language. You got to start somewhere. And whether it's one coaching session or it's a training program like ours, or maybe it's a coaching thing that's got 4 packages. I don't know. The key is you need to be prepared, and
Absolutely.
you need to take the time to do it and do it right. Because let's just use our program as an example. $2,500 for our Tech Interview Mastery program that comes with a series of small classes and then 6 monthly coach interview practices. That's $2,500. And if it gets you just the $30,000, just the $30,000 increase, that's $30,000 in the first year.
So 30,000 over 30 years is 900.
Right.
So when you can pay $2,500 to get, and I want to get off of our training, but
yeah.
If you could pay $50,000 and get $900,000, it would be cheap.
Yep.
And while we're at it, that's how successful and wealthy people look at things as investments. To us, it's not the cost, it's the return on what we've actually spent. Regular people think of cost. If I buy a cheeseburger and it's $100, it's expensive. It is. If I take a $100,000 MBA program, but it raises my salary by $100,000, it's cheap. So, there's that. But yeah, there's this concept. So yeah, did you have any more to say, or do you want to get to questions, Chris?
I got questions to get to.
Good.
All right. So, so Eric asked, what are some great exit interview questions? I asked him what he actually meant. He meant post-interview questions.
Okay. So, this is a really dangerous one. It's a very dangerous one. And here's the reason why. These are the questions. So if you know what we're looking for, energy, enthusiasm, passion, great team player, willingness to go above and beyond, competency, and honesty. Here's one of the most frequent questions I get asked. What's the work-life balance like? Now, that's where you push the button and the trap door opens.
With a cookie.
Or give a cookie, because right then and there, instantly, what happens is I can't hire this person because I don't think they're willing to go above and beyond when I need them. They're already looking for vacation time. I'm trying to solve a problem. So that's like trying to marry someone and say, please marry me. I don't have a job. I'll never make any money. I don't own a home. And my parents and sister and brother and family are abusive people. And I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. Marry me. So don't do that. In fact, there's books filled of the worst questions you could possibly ask that'll get you not hired. There's one question that I recommend to you. You say to the manager, could you please tell me what your goals are? Because I want to know that if I'm on your team, I could help you and the team be more successful. That's the only question I would ever advise you to ask. It's the question I've asked on every single interview. Every single time I got a smile and a handshake, and most of the time they said, you're going to be hearing from me soon. Why? Well, when other people are talking about being lazy, I'm showing them I care about them. The person now knows that I care about them, and I only want to take the job if I can help them. That makes me stand in the top 0.1% compared to everybody else. Now, what else does that question do for me? You think a job description has anything to do with the job? Zero. I've never seen a job description that actually mattered. It was like they were written by drunk people who spoke another language, and then they used Google Translate to translate it to English.
We could do a whole show on job
We could do a whole show on job descriptions.
Yes, we could.
But a job description is meaningless. Meaningless. What the hiring manager's goals are, that's your job. They determine what you do. So if you want to know what your job is, that's also the question to ask. So kind of keep that, but try not to ask too many questions. There's plenty of times where you can negotiate and do other things. Your job is to get in, show them you're great, get to yes, and stop talking as fast as possible. If you've ever been a sales rep, the customer says, I'd like to buy, and they babble and babble and babble until they lose it. I've actually had people that I was ready to hire, and then they kept talking. And I went, thank God I didn't hire this person.
Now there's something here, you know, there's always the chance that you get to that point and then it becomes something other than an interview and it becomes a conversation. And Mike and Alonzo, you know what I'm talking about. You've kind of won at that point.
Yeah.
And the key is keep the conversation focused on them. In the same vein of that question that Mike was talking about, that you ask them about them, ask them about them, ask them about them. Different aspect, like if it gets to where you do, it keeps in a conversation, or they keep asking you if you've got another question or if you've got anything else, you know, blah, blah. Keep asking them in different aspects about them or their department or their, you know, their goals or their whatever it might be. Doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And when it happens, you got to make sure that you don't talk too much about the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Keep it focused, because if they like you, they want to keep it going, because we don't have a lot of time as hiring managers. But if we forget about time, then you're in a good place. And you got to keep talking about the things that we care about.
Yeah.
So I wanted to point that out, because like I said, Mike and Alonzo, I know you know that happens. And when it happens, you got to make sure that you handle it the right way. So make sure to keep talking about the things that hiring manager cares about, not what you care about. There's other times to talk about that.
Totally agree.
Yeah, don't buy your 50-year-old grandmother a sandbox because it's your favorite thing in the world.
I couldn't have said it more. You think about, and just not beating a dead horse, but you want to be memorable because you have to leave that situation better than how you found it. Remember that the hiring manager, it's a semi-blank slate outside of what they know about your resume. So you have that two-dimensional image right there. Now you can bring it into a three-dimensional or four-dimensional construct, if you will, by showcasing even more about yourself. So just like never leaving money on the table, never leave ambiguity on the table for that hiring manager to guess about you, but showcase and make sure that opportunity is front sight focused on how you can make that hiring manager's life better day to day. And even maybe illustrate a small little plan about how you could do it based off of your discussion. Just leave an illustration for them.
All right. Craig says, our interview prep course was intense in a good way and very helpful. Yes, Craig jumped right in there.
Thanks,
and
Craig.
I remember that. Let's see. Hassan says, do you guys provide only training and courses? What about job placement or manpower outsourcing team as a service arrangement? We don't have any arrangements with any companies for reasons. We don't want to be tied directly to anyone. So Mike, I'll let you elaborate.
I'm going to address this. Hassan, we are the absolute best cloud computing training organization in the world. We were recognized as #1 online training school. In order to be the best, in order to have a program where our students work at Amazon, at Microsoft, Cisco, Apple, Zscaler, Palo Alto, IBM, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Bearing Point, Capgemini, JP Morgan Chase, British Broadcasting Company, Barclays Bank, and many other elite organizations, we have one thing: we focus. If Simone Biles, that gymnast that I showed you guys earlier, was focusing on playing football, not gymnastics, she wouldn't be great. As such, we have 100% laser focus on architecture careers, and that's why our students get hired every single day. Getting somebody hired is nothing with the right training. The students that I have usually have a big problem. They say, Mike, I put Go Cloud Careers on your resume. I followed the resume training, and now recruiters want to talk to me, but I'm not ready for a job yet. And we have to teach them how to wait to go on the interviews until they're ready. Getting interviewed is nothing when you come from the right organization and you have the right things in your resume. Sure, we could do outsourcing, but if we did outsourcing, part of my focus as the CEO would go from making sure our students get the jobs at the world's greatest companies in terms of trying to selling outsourcing. And I would be shortchanging my students the education of a lifetime. And I will never shortchange my students the education of a lifetime. So, potential in the future, and if I could hire the right CEO and do all these things, I'd think about it. But our focus is one thing: to provide a $50,000 education for $2,500. And we do that. And that's why our students get the most elite and high-paying jobs in the world. And I can't divert our focus to anything other than coaching architects of all kinds, coaching interviews for technology professionals, and giving people the business acumen skills to get a $500,000 job. That's all we do, because that's our only purpose in life.
Yeah, and the unfortunate downside of if we tried to do arrangements with companies, we would end up not training our people for what they truly need to know.
Yes.
Right.
We would end up training for less than what they need to know, because we would be obligated to prepare them for this very small little thing at this
one company
or these two companies, and that's not beneficial to our students. So that's good question though. Good honest question. I like that.
It's a very honest question and a great one.
Yeah, that job could go away, be downgraded, and it downgrades your skill set right along with it.
Exactly. And that's what happens with a lot of these boot camps and these boot camp companies as well. Sorry, I'm about to go down a rabbit hole. Let's get to one David Ortiz's question. I think the one I worried about is what's the best way to say I don't know.
I'll help you with this, David or Juan, but here's the thing. I expect to give you a question, and if you get interviewed by me, I will always give you a question that I know you don't know the answer to, because I want to see if you're going to lie to me or not. I went on my first interview 25 years ago for tech. I think the person's name was, I remember the person's name was Devendra. It was at MCI WorldCom. They were the world's largest ISP at the time. Now they're Verizon. And I can remember the interview like it was yesterday, because he asked me a BGP question, and I wowed the guy, and I could see it in his eyes. He asked me about a routing protocol called OSPF. I wowed him on it. And then he asked me about this EIGRP protocol. It was a Cisco proprietary protocol. I don't use proprietary anything in life, when I don't have to, because it locks people in. It's like the Hotel California. You can check in anytime you want, but you can never leave. And I don't like proprietary services. So Devendra said, could you tell me about EIGRP? And actually, I made a joke about the whole thing because it was my first tech job. I said, Devendra, thank you for asking me about this question. And I want to be real honest with you. This is my first tech interview in my entire life. Yesterday at 6 p.m., I was doing rounds on my patients at the hospital. And today I'm here with you, and I am so excited to be here. I said, Devendra, I am the most motivated person you're ever going to meet in your life. I know what I know. I know what I don't know. If EIG was important to you, I'd stay up all night, read 1,000 pages a day until I was the best EIGRP person on your team. But it's not something I know, and I want you to know what I know and know what I don't know so you can be comfortable with me. Devendra, if you really want to talk about my competency, I can go into depth about WAN technologies, BGP, OSPF, intermediate systems to intermediate systems, PIM for IP multicast, and I'd love to discuss that with depth, but I feel it's important to be honest with you. Now, it was my first tech job, and I was applying for a network engineering job, and Devendra sticks out his hand and says, Michael, I'm going to hire you. He says, but I do have one problem with you. You applied to be a network engineer. You're already better than most of my staff, and you've never worked in tech, and you just told me this is your first tech interview. I'm going to make you a senior engineer. Within 6 months, I was the lead architect for the entire team. So the key is when you're saying, I don't know, you got to show them that you are what they want. They want honest, right? Did I tell them I was honest and show them? I sure did. They want energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate. Did I tell them I'd stay up all night, read 1,000 pages a day? I sure did. Employers want somebody that knows what they know and knows what they don't know, so they make mistakes. Did I show him I knew what I knew and knew what I didn't know? I sure did. Did I show him that I could communicate well? I sure did. Did I show motivation in that? I sure did. He almost had no choice but to hire me. Now, if I had to say that on every question, it would be a problem.
All right. So let's see. Oh, let's see. Chikasaur says, how do you weave in all the good points you've given us without sounding nervous and lacking sincerity or ingenuity? Can I start this one, Mike? And then
Sure.
let you answer for yourself?
Yeah.
Preparation. And I'm not saying Mike spends hours and hours and hours to prepare for this show, but he knows this inside and out. And because he knows it to the level that he does, he's able to do this. Now you'll notice Alonzo and I may not be able to do it as well, but there are some topics, especially if you're in the program, there are some topics that Alonzo and I will do and blow your socks off.
Yep.
There's topics that Dr. Johnson and Dr. Long do and blow your socks off. And you know that I'll go out on a limb here and probably say there's probably some things in the program and on the Head in the Clouds that you're not exactly Mr. Je ne sais quoi with, but you do good enough because they're topics that maybe Alonzo and I are better at. And if you go through and watch our catalog, you'll probably see those. But yeah, so in this instance, Mike's preparation is his experience and his innate, the knowledge that he has developed and ingrained in himself. And that's one of the reasons why we emphasize and emphasize and emphasize and emphasize. Prepare. Practice. Oh, and prepare. So that you can do exactly what you just said. But now that I've said all that, I'll let Mike actually say why he's able to do this without sounding nervous and lacking sincerity or ingenuity. Oh, and I'll also say Mike is sincere, period. Mike doesn't do anything that he doesn't sincerely believe in. So I saw a comment in the chat box earlier about, skills plus passion or competency plus passion is the key to success. And I think sincerity goes right along with that passion. So just wanted to throw that in there.
There's a few things. Now, when you hear me speak, live on a channel like this, it's because I'm an expert. And what is an expert? Someone that has at least 10,000 hours in a specific area. I'm sure I've spent 10,000 hours coaching people over interviews in the last 25 to 30 years. I've spoken to thousands of hiring managers, executives, C-level executives, and asked them what they want. But it's not just that. It's not just, you can't learn everything on the job. I have a $350,000 education. I'll say it again. I've got a $350,000 education. I have 2 MBAs that I've done. Cisco paid for about $100,000 of leadership training, executive presence, CXO relevancy, sales, business acumen, in addition to the 2 MBAs. And I've taken a tremendous amount of tech training. Over the course, it was over $350,000 a year. Now, when you do that, I used to read 3 books a week every day for the first 25 years of my career until I started this company. And when I started this company, 100-hour work weeks became normal. and my ability to read and remember anything because my brain was fried kind of went to zero. But I'm speaking with what I talk about. Now, if I were to talk about project management, I'd ask Alonzo to do it because that's a field he knows in. When it comes application architecture, I ask my friend Angelo to do it, or maybe Lohit, who was a student that we trained, who now works at AWS. I ask people that are better than me. So I think the real key is to know what you're good at, and what you're good at, show the world your stuff. And what you're not good at, build the best team of people you can find to work with you on it. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I know I say that a lot. Steve Jobs said nothing great was built by one person, and I truly believe that as well. So it's that. But I've got a lot of education in how to speak live. And, life is cumulative, Chickasaur. I've never coded anything in my entire life. I don't need to. I've always been an architect, so it's not a relevant skill. Now, I worked as a firefighter paramedic for 7 years, paying my way through school. That's how I paid my way through school. I worked 3 jobs when I went to school. So when people say I don't have money, I get it. I worked 3 jobs to pay for the education because I knew how the education was going to change my life. And I took loans, which I paid back almost overnight. But the key is being a firefighter paramedic taught me how to be used to stressful situations. I also practiced martial arts. I also am a yoga instructor. And it's not that I teach yoga classes, it's that I wanted to learn and become a better coach. And I thought that would be something that would help me be a better coach. I also took the training of the CSCS, the strength coaches that train professional athletes, because I wanted to learn how to be a better coach. So I studied other coaching and coaching techniques from other fields so I could take what I liked and put it in my field. So it's focus. But I appreciate that very much. And I only talk about what I'm passionate about. And you'll hear me if I don't believe in something. I'll tell you. Chances are you might be in class and you'll know exactly the things that I like versus don't like, because I'm brutally honest.
Mike will not pull a punch.
All right. So Richard says, Je ne sais quoi. I thought Chris Johnson was from Mississippi. Well, guess what? Mississippi's got a lot of French in it.
Yeah, tell him that's where Mardi Gras originally came from before it went to New Orleans.
Exactly. Yep. So Mississippi's got a lot of French in it. So that's now we may not say it right. The county that I'm from, about 15 miles from me on the Mississippi River, there's a town called Benoit. It's spelled Benoit, and everybody says it Benoit. That isn't from Mississippi. Even people in Mississippi say it. Some people say it is Benoit. But if you're from there, it's Benoit. So we might know French, but we don't say it right all the time. But that one I can say right. King Leo says, Mike, do you offer mentorship to someone who is interested in starting a tech consultant business years down the line?
We definitely offer one-on-one consultations. And they can be used to practice an interview, build a career plan, help build a business plan. We do. And they can be purchased off of our website.
All right. Okay. I'm going to go out of order here because this next question that I just got to could end the show. Here you go. I'll let you talk about this one. Brian, good question. Can you share an example of company culture? How do we know if we're a good fit to the culture? Example in mind is a bank, conservative, wear a suit, short haircut, tech company, wear a polo shirt, opposite, etc.
Good question.
Yeah, so it's a great question. So first, this is why I talk about doing reconnaissance. You've got to research the company ahead of time. You got to figure out what you like and what the company's known for. IBM is a culture of digital transformation. Everything is based upon business. When IBM talks about it, they've got something substantial. It's IBM. They've got experience. And likewise, IBM is a blue suit, white shirt, black shoes culture. Just like a Deloitte, just like a Cisco, just like an Accenture. They take no political statements whatsoever. They do business with everybody, and they don't have a position on anything. If that's you, IBM, Cisco, Microsoft, great company. Now, there are other companies which make their political positions known. And I'm not going to say it's good or bad. It's just philosophy. Now, I wouldn't take a political position on anything. Why? Because 50% of the population will agree with me and 50% of the population is going to hate me. So I would take no political positions. But does Amazon take a political position on stuff? You betcha they do. Does Google take a position on something? You betcha they do. That will limit who they can sell to. That will limit who is going to want to work for them as well. And it's not what people say, it's people's actions that you look at. Read the news headlines from a company. Do you think IBM ever kicked a company out because they didn't agree with their philosophy? No. They're open and they're generic. A particular cloud provider had a customer, didn't like their business, and they kicked them out. Here, you got to be out of our cloud within 30 days. Now, if you were part of the culture that liked that company that was kicked out by the cloud provider, you're not going to be happy there. And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong for anything. You're never going to hear that from me. I don't get political. I don't know enough about politics at all. Why? I don't have access to the right information. I don't get daily briefing from the CIA. I have no idea what's going on. So go back to the recon thing here. When we go back to recon, do your research ahead of time. It'll be very clear the kind of companies that are going to fit in for you and whether you're going to be happy or not happy there.
Yeah, and I'll take that a step further. If you have the opportunity, if you have the ability, if you have the potential, don't try to force yourself into a culture that you're not going to be comfortable in.
No.
Now, I understand that there's situations where we got to work. So if that's the case, know that going in.
Adapt, yeah.
Know that, okay, it's not the culture that I desire, but I'm going into it. This is my situation. Here's what it is. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. What's that? The Wolf of Wall Street, a little chant. Do that. Build yourself up. Get yourself ready. But if you have the opportunity, don't put yourself in a. I got a friend of mine who's from my old industry, in the hospitality industry. They're not currently enjoying where they are. They're from the South, and somehow they ended up in the Midwest in the cold, and they're not happy, but they're okay. They're comfortable. They're looking. They're trying to find their things, and they have the opportunity to find the culture that works for them. So if you've got the opportunity, don't try and force yourself into something that is not a good culture. Yeah. But that all goes back to your recon.
Mm-hmm. If you're a Pats fan, then don't go to a Pats culture.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and say it now. I'm going to cut it off with questions. I'm going to take only questions that are in the chat box. Yeah. We got a hard stop for Mike that we got to make sure we stick to. So let me get this one in. Actually, let me. Okay, the one that I keep holding it because I know it's going to take us a very long time to answer. So I'm going to do a couple, and then we'll close out with this one. Quick fire. Recommendation to augment one's business acumen in general. Any great book?
Yeah, I want to answer this. You don't become a doctor in one book. You can't learn business acumen in one book. You're dealing with people like me. Alonzo, what'd you pay for your MBA? 150 grand?
150 and up.
150 and up. I'm dealing with a same kind of MBA. Chris also has an MBA. After your MBA, what'd you read? 40, 50, 100 books, 200 books?
Minimum.
And how many leadership courses have you took around them to improve your business acumen? Again,
Minimum.
so, you know, you want to get business acumen, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can take our tech leadership program where we basically come up with only the most critical things and removed everything that you don't need, or go get an MBA and get some leadership training after the fact. That's the difference between a help desk and an admin job, which you can study and prepare for yourself, and an elite career like an architect or something like that. You have to get somebody to train you. You just can't learn to fly an airplane on your own, be a doctor on your own, or have great business acumen on your own. You're going to need somebody, whether it's $1,000 an hour coach, you know, for 10 hours a week for the next 3 years, whether it's training, it's just the only way.
All right. Another quick answer. In your opinions, they say Mike, but then they say opinions. So I'm guessing they're asking all of us. What is the best way to retain so much information when you read so many books in such a short span? Do you take notes on everything that you read? Ooh, this is going to be good because Mike and I and Alonzo, we all read differently.
Yeah.
So
we all read differently. So to be fair,
yeah,
until recently, when I was intellectually overloaded, I used to be able to remember everything. But I also would take handwritten notes. Note, I'm going to say it again, handwritten notes. And here's the reason why. Some experience from my old practicing medicine days. When we write by hand, we activate a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. Now that part is usually the thing that wakes you up when you see a squirrel run across the highway at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're driving, but it also activates it by writing down. And when you have the reticular activating system activated, you remember stuff better. It was remembered it gets activated under times of stress or excitement or when you write. So if you can remember your wedding day 30 years later, what your wife looked like, what the cake tasted like, it's because the reticular activating system was activated. So that's one of the tricks that I use.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called. I honestly don't remember where I read it, but when I read, if I read 3 chapters, then the next time I read, I start back in the middle of that I've already read, and then read farther. And then when I start back again, I start back in the middle of that last part that I read, and then read farther. So that's as far as reading and retaining information. That's how I do it.
Yeah. And I'll say, for instance, I'll read the same book. I'll highlight portions that really resonate with me or I don't understand. Then I go and look at it again, and then I write it down. So I'm visual. And what is that? What is it called when you learn by writing it down, Mike? What is that actual terminology?
Tactic?
Sure.
Yeah. I do. Yeah. I learn by both of those. So, and it also underscores it through repetition as well. So I can visualize it, I can write it down, and through repetition, I learn. And then one of the key things that I learn through is learning through analogy. That's one of my biggest ways I absorb information as well.
All right. So from Ms. Laman Jamin, how do we deal with substantiating our experience with the metrics and numbers from the clients via the assignments in the interviews?
I can't think of many times I've actually talked about a metric in an interview. I wouldn't. I'd keep it focused on how I can help them. If you get bogged down in all the dirty details of stuff that they're not going to care about, because they care about whether you can help them, they're going to hear wah, 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 wah. So I really don't. And the only time I ever would is if I was dealing with a situation where I had to design an architecture that stopped outages or something like that and talked about what it was costing them. But it's not something I would really talk about on an interview for the most part.
Yeah, I'm going to take my experience from hotels because, just thinking about metrics that we talk about, if we're talking about how we increased our average rate or our market penetration, don't talk about the specifics. You talk about the what it did, what it did for the company.
And while we're at it, Miss Lam and Jamin, you had a beautiful LinkedIn profile that we helped you build about a year ago. You've made some changes to it. It needs to go back to what it used to be. Because she's super capable.
All right, King Leo says, when we are in the program, when do we start researching what companies we want to work at?
When you're in a program training for a career that you've never had before in your entire life, and you're looking to get that first $150,000 to $300,000 job, I wouldn't be selective. I would open the door to as many companies as I can. A year or two later, if I wasn't happy, then I'd find the place that I would want to work at. But I wouldn't even think about reducing my options that fast.
That goes back to that, if you've got the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I specifically said opportunity because I didn't want to say luxury, just because I don't want it to sound like it. But if you've got the luxury to be able to choose, then take the time to choose. But if it's your first one, that's not one that you got.
Yeah.
Unless it's just one that you know that you would be absolutely miserable working in Antarctica.
Yeah.
You know?
And remember, if you're going to go, think about if negotiation is it's the juice worth the squeeze. Just make sure that with your opportunities, if they don't go in the direction you want, when you actually have it in hand, can you sacrifice it? And if not, then I would go for it.
All right.
Touch the ChatGPT question.
That's the question that I saved. Because I wanted to make sure that we didn't just eat up the rest of the show with it. So this is the last one now.
Oh, I can't wait to see this one.
Is it outrightly wrong to use AI to draft a resume? I'm assuming this is the ChatGPT one you were talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I just realized it doesn't specifically say ChatGPT.
It does in the next one.
Is it outrightly wrong to use AI to draft a resume? What I tried was to feed the ChatGPT. Oh, it does say ChatGPT with information about me and asked it to generate a resume based on the information I fed it.
Well, the first thing that's going to happen if you use ChatGPT is a hiring manager is going to read it and they're going to say, never hire this person, because it's going to feel like it was written by artificial intelligence. And we're going to think this person is so lazy that they can't even build a resume themselves, or they can't hire a consultant to help them, which again means they don't know how to get help when they need it. So I would never waste my time interviewing anybody that has ChatGPT from resume. The second side of it is ChatGPT doesn't know how to connect to human emotions. And with any advertisement, and a resume is just an advertisement, you want to get an engagement out of the person. You want them to feel something. And what you want them to feel is going to be different for different jobs. You know, a good professional has 5 different resumes for slightly different jobs. And for each job, you've got to conjure up a different emotion in the person that's going to read it. So for the people out there recommending ChatGPT, I'll tell you, 90% of them have either never had a job or had a job, got fired, and then they decided to be a career consultant with less than 2 years experience. That's 90% of what's out there. You need to have the skills to write a good resume. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't share it with several friends. You should. Absolutely. But don't share it with people that are in the same position as you, because they don't know. So there was this poster, I think it was called The Parable of the Blind. It's an old picture where you got one person who's a blind holding another one's shoulder where they're running around in a room. That's what happens if you go to Reddit, for example. You go there, and a bunch of people that have never had a job told you why you were wrong about your job. If someone asks their peers that have never had a job, they don't know what needs to be there. So go out there and find somebody that's had the job and been successful. Ask them, and then they can easily help you generate a perfect resume. And you're going to have to tailor that resume slightly for every single job. But here's the thing. What is the one thing that we do in every major job? Every major job, we have to write, we have to communicate, and we have to sell. If you're a doctor, you got to sell your patients on taking their medications. Otherwise, they won't take them and they'll die. And nobody thinks of the doctor as a sales job. When you're a manager, you got to sell your people into wanting to work, because nobody wants to work by nature. When you're an architect, you got to sell people for the willingness to work with you. You got to sell upper management to give you the resources you need. for example. And then you got to sell the client your design. So this is one of those skills that is absolutely essential. You must learn it and you must get good at it, and it'll change your life for having it.
And another thing, you are this is your brand, this is your ability, this is more or less your business card. So would you want some chat GPT, a generative AI that knows nothing about you, what you've done, your accomplishments, how you're able to articulate yourself via your skills, and you want it to automate something that speaks to you? I wouldn't recommend that. So not only will you get the skills, but you also will be able to get an understanding of who you truly are and what you can do. And that's definitive in your resume. So you can intimately talk about what's on there. So if you allow ChatGPT to create this resume for you, can you really speak to those skills? Because if they catch you in the corner, you better believe they will drill down on any specific weakness that they think you have.
All right. So, Mike, you got any last words for us?
Yeah, I really want to end on this. Please train for the interview. You wouldn't want to be an athlete that trains everything and never does a practice competition, and then they're in the competition the first time and they freeze. What happens on an interview? You get stressed. When people get stressed, they're not at their peak. So we don't rise to the occasion. We fall to the level of our training. So train to be so good that when you fall 30% because you're stressed, you're still better than everybody else. I don't care if interview training cost you $25,000. It would be worth it. Why would it be worth it? We don't charge $25,000 for interview training, but even if we did, if you got $25,000 in interview training and it yielded $3 or $4 million for the rest of your career, it would be a win. If it was $25,000 and it's for interview training from somebody else, and it was great, and that got you hired 6 months sooner for a job that pays $200,000 a year, you'd get hired, you'd earn an extra $100,000, spend $25,000, and still be $75,000 ahead. Practice your interview. Practice. Now, you also need to be trained, because practice makes permanent. I'm going to say it again. If you practice something wrong, you learn how to do it wrong. If you practice it perfectly, perfect practice makes perfect. So get the right training, get the right drills, and practice until you become great at it. The interview training will add millions of dollars to your lifetime salary. Interview training will get you jobs that you could never get on your own. And the interview is like war. It really is. You have 5,000 people that apply for a job, one person gets hired. That's like a battle of a lifetime. Navy SEALs are successful. Why? Because they go through the hardest training in the world, and they practice, and they practice, and they practice, and they practice. Every day. The only easy day for them is yesterday, because they've already completed it. But they're the best in the world. I showed you Simone Biles, and you saw that vault that she did. I promise you it wasn't her first time. Wasn't her second time. Wasn't her third time. Wasn't even her 100th time. It might have been her 100,000th time. Train to be better than the rest. It makes no sense for you to train for your skills and then go in the competition, the interview, not be prepared, and have the person that doesn't know anything get hired when you don't. Yeah, when you get a job, you're often going to wonder, how did this person get this job when this rock star couldn't? Because they interviewed better. I want you to win the interview. I want you to have the kind of wealth that we're talking about. I don't know many people that couldn't use an additional $2 to $10 million in their retirement. And that's the difference of what you can earn in your career by being properly trained. We showed you the metrics. We showed you the delta between the top and bottom paid person in the position. It's not related to anything other than how much you can inspire the hiring manager in terms of why they need you. So get it from us, get it from somewhere else. But please, I beg you, get interview training.
Yeah. You know what, Mike? I'm just going to go ahead and put you on the spot here. What are you doing on September 20th? And not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after next.
I could be available.
I know your calendar. You're not doing anything. All right. So All right, so let's do another secrets to winning the interview webinar.
Okay.
While you've been doing your little closing round there, I put together a little Zoom meeting. So there's a link in the chat box there for our secrets to winning the interview webinar. Register for that if you want to learn more, and if you not just learn more about the interview, but also learn more about what we offer as well. If that's something that you're interested in, sign up and you can learn about it. We've got a new batch of our Tech Interview Mastery program that we're going to be doing soon. So it's something that we do periodically. It's a limited thing. We're limiting it to 20 people this time. So if it's something that you might want to learn more about, sign up for that webinar and learn more. Now, Kevin had a question that I think is important. We get to it real fast and then we can wrap it up. Kevin said, should you be particular about a certain salary?
At what phase of your career?
Depends on when you are. So,
I mean,
you're a student, so we're going to say beginning of career.
In the beginning of career, I would take something that's a reasonable salary to get my foot in the door, and then I would either get myself promoted or find a different job very soon. But the key is you've got to get your first job. When in your first job, and it's a job where you don't have a lot of experience, you can still negotiate and you can be with your salary. The key is dazzling them. How well you dazzle them will determine what your salary is. But I wouldn't ask for $500,000 on my first job. I'd look at the range. I'd get my data, and I'd try to get myself to the mid to upper part of that first range for the first job. For example, and I'll be honest, my first network engineer job was in 1999, and I was offered $85,000, and it was a low salary, but I took it because I was earning $78,000 a year as a nurse practitioner. I went, wow, I'm in tech, and it's matching my tech salary. I had that job for 6 months, and I got my next job. I worked on Wall Street for $170,000 a year. I couldn't have got that Wall Street job without that $85,000 stepping stone. Do I regret working for WorldCom for $85,000 a year? Not one bit, because I wouldn't have gotten any of the better jobs had I not had that. So it depends on where you're at in your career. So, it all depends. If you've worked as an engineer and now you want to be an architect, you'll get a little more, but remember, it's a different career. So they're not going to pay you for your engineering knowledge. They're going to pay you for your architecture ability, which is a different career. So you're a relatively new architect still. Now, I've had some people that got their first architect job at $300,000 a year if they had a tech background. Heck, I had somebody a few weeks ago that had a background that got a $404,000 job, but they had a lot of the skills that were really exceptional at it. They just didn't know how to package them. They didn't know how to present. They didn't know how to lead. They didn't know how to sell. They didn't have the business acumen. They didn't have the emotional intelligence. So getting that person a $250,000 raise wasn't that challenging because they had the tools. They just needed to show the world how to use those tools, and they needed to build them. So the key is, it's your first job. I would expect at least $100,000 a year. 150 is about average to 170 with what we're seeing on our students for a first cloud architect job. We're seeing a lot higher when people have some experience, but you got to look at it. You got to know your value. You got to be realistic about your communication skills. You got to be realistic about your sales skills, realistic about your interview skills. Got to be realistic about how you actually delivered the interview. And that will determine your salary. Great question.
All right. So Alonzo, you got any last words?
I think that we handled it really well. I think we might have one question, but I think that what everyone should definitely take advantage of is the Secrets to Winning interview webinar that Chris laid out. I think it's on the 20th.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that everyone there, if you enjoy what you have and you can definitely increase your value and have seen and written down notes and and have enjoyed this, I definitely recommend you participate on the 20th to join that.
All right. And I believe the question you're referring to is Richard's question about how long do you stay at the first job before moving up? It's our favorite answer. It depends.
Right now in this economy, I would be sticking around.
Yep.
Being the best person on the team. If we were in a better economy where people are giving you 10 offers a day, I'd think about it then. But how happy are you in that job? Is there a career path in that job? Cisco had a career path. You could start out at the bottom and work your way up. I know plenty of people that did it. Other companies, they hire you as the new person, often referred to as the FNG in certain circles. And they're going to see you as the FNG forever. And you're not going to move up. And you're going to be typecast as the newbie. So it all depends where you're at. It all depends the corporate culture. It all depends your manager. It all depends what's going on in the team. My wife worked 17 years at a clinical facility. And she loved it. She went to another one. Guess what? She's been there 10 years. I'm proud of her for that. She takes the best care of her patients than anybody I've ever seen in the entire world. She liked it, found a company, and grew with it.
All right. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We went over a few minutes, but I think it was worth it. So if I can, I'd like to remind everybody to get your free interview guide, completely free resource prepared by myself, Alonzo, and Mike to help you prepare or to take those first steps to preparing to win the interview. Tyrone, if you can put that link in the chat box, that link is also in the description. And then, of course, I also want to make sure that if you're interested in learning more about the secrets to winning the interview and learning more about how we can help you with that, register for our upcoming webinar that I just made Mike aware of, that I just scheduled. And register for this webinar. I just put the link there in the chat box. So that's all I've got for you. Mike, any last words? I know I keep seeing some things rolling here in the chat box.
Download the free guide.
What?
Download the free guide to win the interview.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.